In this lesson, we are going to discuss basic conversions in the metric system. The first question that you may ask is, what is the metric system? Now, it is very important to remember that in the metric system, it is based on the number 10. There is other systems for measurements as well, where it is not based on the number 10, such as the imperial system. That we will discuss in another lesson. Now, examples of measurements in the metric system are meters, grams, and liters. I'm going to refer to meters, grams, and liters as the base unit. You will see a little bit later on why. The metric system is one of the most commonly used systems in the world, and South Africa also opted to use this system. Let us do some examples. If I am going to measure distance, distance is measured in meters. I'm talking about meters as the base units. But now, beside this base unit, I can also get smaller and bigger versions of the unit, such as millimeter, centimeter, meter is the base, and then kilometer. Distance is at any stage when you move from one point to another, you are covering a distance. A second measurement that we are going to look at is that of mass. Mass is if you are going to check how heavy something is. And here we use the base unit gram. Besides the base unit gram, I can go smaller and use milligram. Gram is the base, or I can go bigger and use kilogram. Volume is the third one that we are going to look at. Volume show us what is the how full something is, or how much fluid do we get if we are, for example, buying cool drink, or if we are filling the bathtub with water and so on. The base unit there is liter, but we also get milliliter and kiloliter. You will see in the case of mass and volume, I'm not using the centi that I'm also having in distance. Now, centi is present here, but for the purposes of mathematical literacy, we do not work with centigram and centiliter. So I'm going to skip those two quantities. Okay, the base units is then meter, gram, and liter. Let us start first of all with meter. If something is very big, then we are going to call it a kilometer. The same for grams. If something has a big mass, we are going to express it in kilogram. And liter. If it's a very big volume of fluid, we are going to express it in kiloliter. If we have smaller amounts, we are going to use the centi, such as centimeter. I already told you that we do get centigram and centiliter, but that we do not usually make use of it in mathematical literacy. And even if we go smaller, we will get millimeter, milligram, and milliliter. Distance, if I move from point A to point B, say for instance, from your house to the school, you cover a certain distance. Or from your house to the city, you cover a certain distance. Let me give you an example of distances. Large distances, for example, can be when you travel from your house to the city. In this case, we will use kilometer to express the distance. If you are in a room and you walk from one side of the room to another side of the room, you will probably use meter to express the distance. If you are looking in your textbook or in your workbook and you draw a line, then you would maybe prefer to use centimeter to measure the length of that line or that distance. And say for instance you are having a very small distance that you want to measure, like the length of a fly, then you are going to use the smallest distance unit, and that is millimeter. We also use it in cases where we want to be more accurate. Mass, let us just do examples of mass. Kilograms, what will I measure in kilograms? We will, for example, measure your body mass in kilograms. If you go and you buy a packet of sweets, Smarties or something like that, or you buy a chocolate bar such as Aero or Lunch Bar, you will probably measure that mass in gram. And finally, if you are busy baking a cake and you need a very little bit of, for example, salt. Remember, if we put too much salt, it's never nice. But just a little bit of salt, we will say we need so many milligrams of salt. Volume, kiloliter, we use for big volumes. Like example, when we want to say how much water is in a dam. Liter, we use for the smaller volumes. For example, if I want to say how much water is in a kettle or in a pot on the stove. Milliliter, we use for the smallest volumes. For example, again, when you are baking a cake and you only want to have a cup of milk or a cup of vinegar that you are going to put into that cake. Let us discuss now how we are actually going to do the conversions. Now, if we are converting in the metric system, you are going to have to convert from memory. So what I'm going to tell you at the end of the day about conversion factors, you are going to have to remember that. Now, let us say for now, we make our base unit a heart, an ordinary heart. If you have an extremely big heart, you will express it as a kilo heart. A smaller heart can be expressed as a centiheart, and a smallest heart will be a milliheart. We have the kilo, the heart, the centiheart, and the milliheart. If I go from the kilo heart to the heart, there's a conversion factor of 1000. If I go from the heart to the centiheart, there's a conversion factor of 100. And if I go from the centiheart to the milliheart, there's a conversion factor of 10. If I am moving in this direction from this very big unit to the smaller sides, I always multiply. Let us look if I move in the opposite direction. If I'm moving from a milliheart to a centiheart, the conversion factor is 10. If I move from a centiheart to a heart, the conversion factor is 100. If I move from a heart to a kiloheart, the conversion factor is 1000. Can you see that every time 10 is lost, if I move from left to right, 1000, 100, 10, it's the same in both cases. But look now, if I move from this side to that side, in other words, from a small unit to a bigger unit, I divide instead of multiply. Let us do some examples to practice this.